Cosmere-related revelations that have happened throughout the week? Or at least preview chapter-related things.
FYI, Michael Whalen shared a high-resolution version of his cover.
Ooh.
Anybody cares to dig that up?
I'll have to check it out. I don't know how different it's going to look like on a screen. Does it
Not
look
terribly.
different?
I mean, it's the same thing, but I updated the Stormlight Archive subreddit banner with the new one because it was high enough resolution to do that. So it mattered to me. It probably matters to nobody else, but...
Let's see if I can...
Oh, World Hopper Ball schedule was released. Yeah.
Yeah, less helpfully news. Without the rest of the Nexus schedule. It's like, okay, I guess that maybe
I'm pretty sure that like the release thing happens Thursday night, and then they're handing out books at 10 p.m. Mountain Time, which is like right in the middle of that World Hopper Ball like time slot. It's like that seems like a terrible choice to do that first Thursday night one. FYI,
I agree.
Anybody considering going?
That one seemed like the least sought after when I was looking at the list. I went, Friday night seems like the one everyone will want, because as a friend of mine pointed out, are you really going to want to do that like at 12:30 the night before your flight? Probably not. Like or 12 p.m. midnight. Like You're probably not going to want to do that night. So I mean, there are not a ton of options as to when it would really make sense.
I mean, that's kind of what time would, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's got to be either like during the con or at an inconvenient time at night, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got to not be perfect in some way. There's pros and cons to all, but I'm sorry, what were you saying, Randall?
Are either of you planning on going to the ball? I'm sure I've asked this before, but just out of curiosity.
I'm gonna try to go just because I want to like see if I'm gonna miss. I don't know. I don't want to miss out, I guess. And if it doesn't like blow me away, then I'll just know like in future years, like I don't really need to go to that. It's it is what it is. So I'll do the first one, see what I think. Yeah.
I think at this point I'm leaning towards not going, just because it's so much money. And like already this is like an expensive. It's one thing if like, I don't know, maybe if I lived in Utah so I didn't have to pay for like airline tickets, and I don't know, it's just already so expensive. And I can't eat any of the food there, so it's sort of like I'm, just going. I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be, and I can't go Friday night, which seems like when everybody is going. So yeah, it just feels like probably not going to happen. But if I find like all of a sudden everybody's going, then maybe I'll get FOMO and go. So we'll see.
I was interested in the because what we're talking about is the email announcement came out for people who had not RSVP'd, but like indicated that they would want to RSVP in the past. Because like, my wife didn't get the email, but I did, right? So she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Oh, there's an email that came out that has the list." And she went, "What?" It also mentions that the wedding is going to happen behind closed doors, maybe. Let me read what they said, because that was really interesting. Where is that?
I don't actually know if I read the email. I just saw the schedules shared.
Yeah, Cosmo Junkie, Gary pointed that out to me, because I was saying how like I was a little bit nervous about the whole like theater aspect of it. Like I didn't know if I was going to find it cringy. And then it was like, oh, but it's not it's like happening in private. I was like, well, I don't know. So I'm very confused about what the whole thing is. I don't know, like the ceremony is like not actually happening, but then they're going to have actors there who are Shallan and Adolin. Like, I don't know. I'm just very confused about the whole thing.
Yeah, here's what it says. Following their intimate family-only wedding ceremony, Adolin and Shallan have extended invitations to you, their World Hopper friends, to join them at the reception. So it does seem to indicate...
what they're doing is... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I just
Um,
to me, I think that they're setting the expectation that it's the reception. You're not coming. There's not going to be a wedding reenactment. I think I just wanted to like make that clear because probably the advertising previously maybe had people thinking like, oh, we're going to watch the wedding ceremony,
do you think the part where
and
they
they're
had
like, no, no,
actors
no.
saying vows maybe made people think there was going to be a wedding?
That's a,
Just a little bit of a of an indication.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Um, yeah, Scuba Juba, I agree. It made it seem like the ball was after the wedding with no actual ceremony. I wouldn't be shocked if there was like a video, perhaps, like you could watch it, because I don't think anybody wants like a super long extended thing. Um, and then Bag of Pudding asked the big question: do you have your outfits planned if you get to go?
I do not. We'll see. We'll see. I might just not dress up, but
I mean, if I go, I have like formal dresses that I could wear, and then I would just put on like
yeah.
I would just put on like a glove for my safe hand. That's the extent of my friend keeps telling me, she's like, you have to go in full costume. I was like, it's not happening. That's the extent of my costuming. So
Part of me wants to invest in some like Thalen eyebrows, so you just kind of like slap those on anything, and it's like, oh, I'm a Thalen. That's my outfit.
I've always said that I am Thalen because my name had, if you take out the A, there are no vowels in my name. So it looks very Thalen. So maybe I should be a Thalen merchant or something.
Oh, that'd be great. We are going to be Syrian Sisebron. That's our goal.
Aww.
That's our plan. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, my wife is currently on round 2 of buying like LEDs to include in Sisebron's outfit to give the like color warping effect that he has. She did not like the first version, so she's going back to a different company to buy those.
Cool.
Yeah. Also, in that like high definition version I pulled up, it still has the like the weird bubbly glyph things we were talking about. So that does seem to be like an actual definite feature. I think last week we were going back and forth on is it
Could be
like an artist protection or something.
Oh, that I don't remember. Oh, that's a very good point. That's actually most likely what it is.
But
So
it's in
people can't make their own alternate covers. They can't like take it and make a cover.
yeah, it's just weird. It's like it's I don't know. It's localized. It's in that one spot. It does feel like it's his take on brand almost or something. I don't know. Like going back to the what did they tell him to include that then inspired that, from an artist perspective.
They're near the like there's some plants there, right? So I like my assumption is that they're like life sprint or something like that.
Yeah, I like the idea. All right, Jane Dill, you said you had thoughts about Wind and Truth that you wanted to share. I would love to hear what those are.
I have
Go
thoughts
straight
about
into
this.
it.
I have thoughts about the preview chapters, so I didn't want to bring that up until we got to like for sure talking about spoiler preview chapters.
Yeah, this is your warning in the chat. We're going to shift into Wind and Truth preview chapter discussions. Go ahead. What's your hot take or what's
I
I think
going
it's
on?
probably not a hot take. It's probably
I have
not
to say,
hot.
yeah, I have to say, Josh, you did not warn us properly. I was like, I don't even know what I just read. I'm gonna forget I read that. It was not for me. It seems like that was at least the chapter with Kaladin and Syl. We can discuss it at length, but I don't want to be like too harsh or like down. But it didn't work for me. So, but it seems like that was pretty much the consensus. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
We're talking. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
I have an extremely strong opinion about chapter 10. That's probably not what. So the thing I don't like in chapter 10, you've got I feel like nobody likes chapter 10. There's the Syl's whole Chol thing. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of people that don't like the interaction with the librarian. They think that Kaladin was too harsh on her, which I didn't quite read it that way, but but like hearing people explain, I can see why they didn't like it. The thing that gets me the most is I hate Kaladin not knowing what a library is. I just think it's the stupidest thing. It bothers me a lot. So, Brandon did a similar thing with Adolin in Rhythm of War. There's like a scene in part 1 in Rhythm of War where they're like, they've just like taken down the Sons of Honor and they're like riding back in the wagon, and Adolin's like confused about who's the Sons of Honor and who's the Ghostbloods and who's the Skybreakers, and Shallan's like explaining to him, and I'm like, he just spent the last like several months hunting down this organization, and now he's sitting here in the wagon being like, I don't know who the Sons of Honor are. Who's this? And I'm like, this is so stupid. Like Adolin is not like that level dumb jock. And I feel like it's the same thing here. Like Kaladin is not like such an army bro that he like doesn't even know what a library is.
I didn't even remember that he doesn't remember what the library is. I was
like, yeah. It's at the very beginning of the very end, because his whole thing is like, he calls the librarian the book quartermaster, and he's like, what do you call he just like gets like stuck on this thing, and I just think it's really stupid because Kaladin is like not that dumb. Like Kaladin knows what a library is. I don't know why he had to forget for this scene, because Brandon thought it needed some humor or something. The whole
in defense of Kaladin, when would he have been around a library thus far?
Roshon's Manor has a library in it. Like I looked this up in Oathbringer, like when he goes back and he's like, arise, and he's talking with Laurel and Roshon, and he's like explaining like, Dalinar sent me to go. That interaction happens in the Roshon mansion library.
But that is not a manned library. There's a difference, right? There's not like scribes running around. So I could see him thinking those must be different.
You could have heard of something even if you've never been there. I don't know. I've like. Yeah. That's a pretty thing.
I think the basement in Eritharu they call it the library. And he's been living in there for the last year, in Eritharu for the last year.
I mean, Kharbranth is like known for their library. Like it's plausible that he was supposed to go there to.
He's going to go study.
Yeah, it's like
their world famous library.
Right.
I just think it's dumb. It's like a small thing.
Yeah,
but it really bothers me.
That's interesting. It's funny. I loved chapter 10. I thought it was amusing and silly in the right places, and I was totally chill with it. I did.
That bothers me. That bothered me. The thing that bothered, like his interaction with the librarian, doesn't bother me a ton. It comes across like a little bit heavy, like the White Knight, Kaladin like stepping up to defend. It's just kind of very like blunt. Which it's fine. It's whatever. I don't have strong opinions about it.
I agree. I think the one step too far was when he was like, go and talk to somebody about it. Like everything up to that point where he's like, hey, you're probably just afraid of something. You're a bully, whatever. I was more or less on board with. It does feel like somewhere in there it was one step farther than it normally would go, and just was a little bit too far.
It didn't bother me, but it did feel a little bit contrived in that, like, why would this librarian be so demeaning to a Spren? Like, the Spren are super important. Like, she would have, all of a sudden these people are gaining, like, godlike powers because of these Spren. To be so needlessly rude to Syl just felt like, we need to get a scene where Kaladin's defending her. Yeah. It just felt a bit contrived as well for me.
Well, not even that. I did appreciate somebody, I think on Reddit, was like, not only is the Spren thing an issue, but this is like, they revere Dalinar, and this is functionally Dalinar's right-hand man, like has been leading Dalinar over the last year, and to just completely insult his companion, yeah, I mean, it's not wise. It's a strange moment. It can feel contrived, I suppose, but I suspended my disbelief from a rope and just enjoyed the scene for Syl's desiring to be his scribe and wanting to like bring him the way of kings and all this stuff. That was so cute.
That was the part that bothered me. But
yeah, But it is super cute that she like I don't know that she wants to like be his scribe. That she is like I don't know. It's an interesting direction for Syl that she's been like learning to read and write, and that she wants to like bring this book along and write things. Like it's just like Syl is, and I guess in some ways like she's still like she wants to be his scribe, so she's still sort of supporting Kaladin in this. But it is like something like is like something special for Syl besides just being around, being Kaladin's therapist, I guess. Like she doesn't really have a whole lot of like individuality, and so it's kind of nice to see her, I don't know, have something that's like special that, you know, this is something she does for herself.
Yeah.
And it's something that's also it's built upon in Rhythm of War, because in Rhythm of War she's like helping him with his like, you know, reading the medical journals and stuff like that. And so it is like a continuation of that. And it doesn't feel like that comes out of nowhere. So that part I didn't mind.
That is the second callback to the previous books where I had to go back and look and I haven't actually fully looked yet, where Brandon's like, oh yeah, this thing happened before, and I'm like, did it? Is that what? It's just my brain doesn't remember that Syl wanted to be a scribe and Oathbringer at all. I believe it. I totally like you're talking about the writing and the reading. I remember that. But there have been a couple of moments.
It's when Kaladin realizes how silly it is that he can't do it for himself, and he's like, gosh, it would be a whole lot easier. I think it's the same scene, or it's the scene. It's right around there where he's like, you know, it'd be super helpful if like we could read it ourselves.
You said it was silly.
Ha ha ha.
Jeremy.
Hey.
Hello.
Surprise.
You came in at just the right moment. We're about to talk about Chols.
No, we're not.
between legs.
I think we might lose Shandel in that conversation. She does not. She's not looking forward to that.
Chols between legs, and weird flirting between Kaladin and Syl.
Yeah, man. So, what was your feeling about chapter 10 overall, Jeremy?
Well, 10's the quartermaster one, right?
Yes.
I don't know. Like, I did get weird vibes between Kaladin and Syl, which I think gives the Sillidan people ammo, which they don't need.
They were eating so good. They were eating so good.
I haven't talked to anybody about these chapters. I just read them today.
Oh.
I just read chapters 5 through 12 today. Because I've been busy with everything. But that, and then I don't know. It's given hints of, obviously there's more to Syl. There was, and I think, oh no, it was from the next chapter, I think, actually. But I don't know. It's given me weird vibes when it comes to Syl, that there's more, and like, especially with Ishar and all his experiments on trying to make them real. I feel like this is just hinting towards Syl being that mixed with what Shallan's doing, and what Ishar's trying to do, and what Syl wants to do. It's all pretty, I think, heavily foreshadowed it. Somehow them becoming physical in the physical realm. And then adding on top the flirtation between Syl and Cal, which I think is, I don't know how I feel about that yet, but I just feel like it's all a foreshadowing of something. So, but that's how I feel.
We were also just discussing Kaladin's lapse of not knowing what a library is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, given Alethi culture, isn't surprising.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, like Kaladin and Syl, it's like both weird, and I mean, I guess it's just the subject matter, because in some ways it feels like normal Syl teasing, but it's also just like a lot more uncomfortable and weirder than usual. Like it's not I snuck a sky eel into your sock drawer or whatever. It's a little more like, oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
you know, asking if he wants to see and stuff. It's just like, all right, I guess this is a thing now. This is where we're going with this storyline. Cool. I don't know. I think if it's, I mean, it seems like, I don't know if he's just doing that to troll us or if it's actually something that he wants to do, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell. I tend to line up with it's just Syl continuing to be Syl, and she's just taking it in a direction that is more awkward to us than previous places.
It could be used as a device to show that she's more maturing versus childlike too, like to show Syl in a more adult fashion versus always just being so childlike, just to make us look at her as more of an adult. Since she is like the oldest spren in existence right now, besides like the Stormfather and the Night Watcher and stuff.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Because there was another one of those, like, there have been several moments in these chapters where it feels like Brandon has written, oh yeah, this has always been this way, and then my brain immediately wants to, like, what has it been that way? And one of them was like Syl, how was it framed? It was something like she'd never been girlish, she'd been like, I don't know, womanly, not girlish, or something like that was the description of her physicality. And then in Way of Kings, the first description of her very specifically is not girlish. It is like avoiding, or childish, maybe was the word they were trying to avoid. I don't remember. But I appreciated that it was consistent between this book and Way of Kings. I also really liked her outfit change. What's it?
Oh yeah, that was
Oh yeah.
description of the ancient with
Kotakama.
warriors.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
And that's what leads into this, right? Like she says, "Oh, you should wear leggings with your kotakama."
Yeah.
Or takama or whatever.
It's fuel for the cosplayers out there. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see some new Syl outfits.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. That's chapter 10 for you. I think like part of like the tone in these, like as I'm reading this, I think that like this book is about to go like at some point here, like you have to hit the gas and the book's going to go pretty hardcore. It's, you know, the finale of the first 5 books. And so to me, like a lot of this feels like Brandon just kind of like, we're going to like give you a little bit of, I don't know, be a little more lighthearted and, I don't know. I think that's what's happening is like in these opening chapters, especially for Kaladin, is just sort of like, let's chill. Let's, you know, see a couple people, make some stops and set a few things up before like things go into overdrive.
Have you guys looked at the word count for these chapters? Are they seem shorter to me? Are they typical size chapters? Because they seem like they're short. I don't know. I feel like I read through them faster than I normally would one of the chapters.
I think it feels very similar to the way Rhythm of War started, where there was sort of an action scene with with some of the characters, and then it slowed down a lot with like Kaladin, and the invasion doesn't happen until 400 pages in. So there's a lot of setup in Rhythm of War, which it feels a little bit similar this time around also. So I agree. I think a lot of people are like, why does it, like, we have so much to get done, why are we starting with all these like random scenes? But I actually think that's kind of important, because like what Josh was saying, that it's going to be so intense at the end that you need to have this kind of a little bit of a let's set up all the pieces. I just want to like quickly say about chapter 10 that I actually am kind of on Team Silladin. I'm okay with it because I think it has been set up. This was just like we went from 0 to 100, and so it just felt a little too intense for me. So I was not a fan, but that's chapter 10 for me.
I'm not as against it as I was. I think these chapters, I think Brandon setting it up the way he did made me go, all right. I mean, if it happens, I guess it makes sense. I was in the camp with everybody else going, no, there's no way that it'll happen. And then this chapter was kind of like a punch in the face, where it's like, okay, I guess maybe it could happen.
Well, like in Oathbreaker, she's like leaning her head against his shoulder, and that's what I'm saying, is that like there were hints, but it wasn't like this was like pretty explicit already. It was not, not subtle. So It was very, and I thought it was just a little bit too much, and it just felt, like I said before, it was just a little bit heavy-handed. So
yeah.
It is interesting to wonder how much of it is flirting and how much of it is Syl just not respecting those taboos the way that a human would, right? To her, it's like potentially not a romantic thing. It's just, hey, isn't this silly? That because Spren don't think about reproduction the same way that we do. Jeremy, to your point, I do think the chapters maybe have felt a little bit shorter. Part of what I think is happening with the narrative is we're getting falling action from Rhythm of War that we didn't get in Rhythm of War. Like we didn't get to resolve Adolin and Shallan in Shadesmar with Kalek, and so we're getting the end of that. And then we didn't get really to resolve Kaladin going off on his journey, so we're getting that. So it does feel like we're kind of wrapping up Rhythm of War pieces before, as Josh says, we storm off into the crazy insanity that is the rest of the 9 days of this book.
If it's only 9 days, I'm still not on team it only being 9 days, but
Oh yeah,
I think they're pretty average chapter lengths.
are they?
But
They
I'm
may
not,
be.
I'm not sure.
When I was looking at the audio portions of it too, they were all like 25 minutes long versus what I feel like the audio chapters are. I don't know. I just feel like they were longer. I could totally be off base. I'm just throwing that out there. Because like I said, I read chapters 5 through 12, or not 3 through 12 today, and I feel like I read through them pretty quick. I mean, I absorb Stormlight books faster than Cosmere books in general, faster than most books anyways, just because I get so into them and excited to read them. But I don't know, I felt like I got through it quick, but that could just be me.
So Way of Kings had 30 minutes, 36, 36, 31, 28, 50, 44, 49. So it's not, and those are the first like first 10 chapters. So it's one of those things where it's not unheard of to have like a balance. I just don't think we've hit like an hour-long chapter yet or a 55-minute chapter yet. But I'm sure one of those is coming, and it'll be crazy.
Average chapter length of Rhythm of War was 2,000 words.
It's crazy.
And these were both chapter 10 was 2,000 and chapter 11 was 2,600.
Interesting. Brigham Moore says.
That makes sense. Like I said, that could have just been a me thing. But.
And it could be also like reading. I think some people have pointed out reading in this format can feel very different than a Kindle or an audiobook. Like there's just something different about reading it off a browser. I know one person I saw was pointing out that they were subconsciously feeling like they were reading fanfic because this is the mode that they read fan fiction in. And so there's just like that subtle, the form informs how you feel about it kind of thing. Brigham Moore says something about the Silladin that I said that Shandel mocked me for on, I think on Discord. They said it feels more of a sister relationship rather than romantic. And probably she's the author for him, aka the scribe of Wind and Truth for Kaladin, or at least that's where it seems where it's going.
That's a really interesting idea. The her being, I had the same thought as that was going up, that like possibly, because now we know for sure it's not Zeth. That's a really interesting idea. But okay, let me tell you, I have 4 siblings, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I have never spoken to any of them like that. And they would be very, very uncomfortable if I did.
I have a lot of siblings as well, and I would never imagine talking to my sibling about choles between legs. This wouldn't happen.
Or taking clothing off.
Yeah, or saying you want to see me naked? Like no.
Yeah.
No.
But what if your sibling was a
people though that
what if your sibling was a horse, right? Like or a cow or a different species, right? It's just like it's a different thing. Who knows?
Nope.
Go ahead, Josh.
Well, he paused himself.
Oh, go away, Josh.
Sorry, I'm back. And I have seen a lot of people say that the way they read it, it's not necessarily meant to imply like some kind of romantic relationship. That I can see dismissing a sibling relationship, but people who think that it's just Syl being Syl, people who think that it's her being, well, I don't know, friends with the unique relationship that they have. They're not like normal. They have like a really like weirdly intimate relationship to like not have a romantic to not have a romantic relationship, right? Like a Spren like human relationship is a very like unique thing that like we don't quite have. I mean, other than having like a extremely close friend, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just a very unique situation that they are in. That any Radiant and Sprint are in.
Yeah.
That sometimes I think it's maybe hard to like know what to do with that relationship. What to like? There's not much you can compare it to, I think.
I mean, especially the honor sprint, because they feel the most human. Like, you know, pattern with Shallan and Evelyn doesn't feel quite as weird. This is why I've always kind of been on the Silladin train, is because I was like, Kaladin with anybody is going to be very weird if Syl's in the mix. Like, it's just his relationship with her does feel much more intimate. But that being said, it was like they've had these conversations before where she's talked about being a mother, she's talking about have kids and things like that, and they've had conversations about intimacy, but not like this. This again, it just felt like maybe we could have had a bit more of a ramp to get there.
You needed to build up to the Chol discussion, is what I'm hearing.
I could have lived without. I'll be honest. I could have lived without. I'm gonna just forget that even happened. So
I think that's fair.
That's fantastic. Let's see. Epigraphs. I'll read chapter 10's. The second moment had happened already when Szeth himself decided to take upon him this quest, the one that would shape all of our futures. And then chapter 11. For while the contest of champions was to happen in the east, a different contest was to happen in Shinovar, and one that the wind swore was equally vital, perhaps more so. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know. It's so hard to speculate though, because there's so many different converging storylines that could take place in Shinovar. Like, because obviously two of the most important characters, which is Szeth and Kaladin, are going to be there. I don't know, and they're going there as Shar, who's obviously an extremely important character, much more powerful than we probably give him credit for being the original bondsmith, who had bondsmith powers prior to coming to Roshar, right? That's the assumption, is that he had bondsmith powers or something of the sort when he was on Ashen, right? That's the assumption. Are we playing off that assumption? Because he's the reason they were able to get to Roshar, right? He created the bridge somehow. So, with apparently the help of the song that Whit plays, which also is fascinating.
Yeah. The rhythms of Roshar guided them across Shadesmar, right? I thought that was really cool. I assume Shadesmar. I guess it could have been space, but
I don't know.
I think it's interesting that each chapter seems to, or each of the epigraphs seems to exclude another person. Like, we keep trying to figure out like who is the writer, and it's like each chapter is like, well, no, it's very clearly like starts off and you're like, oh, it's Kaladin, and then it's like, okay, no, it's not Kaladin, maybe it's Yasna, but then this time it's maybe it's Szeth. This time it's like very clearly not Szeth. So it's like cool how it's like, we're slowly eliminating people who it could possibly be.
I was telling Josh this week that it feels like the strangest game of Guess Who that I've ever played. Does your character have wide, baby-like eyes? No? Dang it, it's not Szeth. Okay.
Stormlight Guess Who sounds like a lot of fun. Like, that actually would be pretty funny to have.
And that's, you can make that too, because that's not
You could.
Like, games are not copyrightable. So you would just need the fan artist's permission at that point, maybe? Question mark? I don't know. Gotta think about that.
The games are not copyrightable? I'm surprised about that.
Oh, yeah. You can't call it Monopoly or Guess Who, but you could call it Wonder Who. And
but you're saying, but Brandon might have an issue with it, because Brandon has like a whole page on what fan artists can and cannot do. And things like, apparel and mugs and stuff like you can't do. So I'd be surprised if you could be like, you can make a Cosmere game.
You can't sell it, but like you can make a Guess Who game without
right
anybody coming after you.
You could really make anything you want as long as you don't sell it.
Well,
No, actually, Brandon allows you to sell. You're allowed to sell fan art, bookmarks, print stickers. You're allowed to sell, which is very, very nice of him.
It is. Brigham Moore said, slightly going back to probably the Shinovar conversation, slightly connected to Fleet. Kaladin might have a similar fate as joining the Wind, kinda. I mean, this is very similar to Fleet, right? We're going west towards Shinovar, and who knows what's going to happen there.
I don't know. It's so hard without any more context right now, because I mean, there's so much cool stuff in the previous chapters too that trying to add this stuff in, it just like the one thing which I'm sure you guys talked about though was the compass thing that points towards the death of a god. Like I'm sure you guys talked about that before, but I saw that and I really highlighted it and saved it because I was like, well, that's important.
Yeah, I don't know if how in depth we got to that. Last week we were I was at Dragon Con, and so we had a lot of fun technical and audio related challenges. Which god's death do you think it points towards? Oh, Josh,
well, because it's the grand knell, source of the current, the death of a god.
Yeah, it's more fun in this one because it talks about gives it all those adjectives or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, the only thing that would make sense if it's something that powerful, it's supposed to be like a compass, like pointing towards the North Star, right? Which is something out there in the ether that is pointing to something in the cosmere that's a constant. To me, it would have to be where Aiden Alzium was shattered, right? Or towards Yolan, right? Would probably be my guess is that's what it points towards Yolan. Which I mean, still, that's got to be where the scar is, right? I mean, that's still an assumption, right? That's the scar. The Yolan is where the scar is. So.
That's good theory.
Somewhere near the scar.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought about. I just went, oh, Honor's death, right? That was where I went with it initially, but probably it makes more sense to go even further.
That's what I would assume, because if you think about the compass always pointing north, like I just feel like it's something beyond that would go beyond just Roshar. It would I mean, I know it's like the magnetic pole or whatever, but it's like, I mean, I don't know the science behind compasses super well. I know it has to do with magnetic pole and stuff like that, but I would just assume it's pointing towards something out there, especially something like that out there in the ether, that I would assume is bigger. Like, and especially because it came from. I mean, I guess because it came from Eurythera, right? So it had to have been invented prior to the death of Honor, because Honor died.
This is fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean? Honor died at the Recreants, right? So he would have still been alive when this was created. So it couldn't have been his death. It had to have been prior to that. Because it's ancient technology of the Radiance.
No, you're right.
That's I mean, totally it could be like a Fabrio that like had one purpose, and now maybe it pointed at one thing, and now it like points at something different or something like that. But I agree. Like that's my same opinion, is that it would have to be something that predated more likely. I mean, it could like point at like some other shard, or some other kind of big event that we don't know about, but
yeah, the candidates come to my mind are Devotion, Dominion, and Ambition, like as places where we know a god has died, and you could point a compass at them, I suppose.
I just feel like
I would think that it can't be. I would think that it's not just a shard being splintered, because then why wouldn't it point at Honor or like any other? Like there's lots of shards that have been splintered, so
that's fair.
It has to be something unique.
Is this in one of the epigraphs? I don't even remember where this is.
Yeah, this is like there's like one mention, and everybody's probably normal people are like, I don't know what that shrug.
It's right when Drehi shows it to Shallan to show them how they get to the Azish Gate, Oath Gate. It's also when he tells Shallan that Navani's a bondsmith, and she's like, wait, what? Like all this stuff happened that I didn't know about. But it's the device that he has it's called a compass, and then he names it all those adjectives that we just talked about. But yeah, that's where it's mentioned. But I feel like, I mean, I don't know if the device itself is necessarily important, but I feel like what it does and the mentioning of what it does is important. Yeah, the Grand Knell, source of the current, the death of a god. I don't know, is that what it's called, or is that what it points towards? I think that's what it points towards. It points towards whatever the Grand Knell is, source of the current, the death of a god. That just, to me, sounds super important. So it sounds like that has to be the location of the Shattering of Aiden Alzium. And the more and more involved we're getting in the Cosmere stuff, I feel like that's. I mean, come on, Sazed was mentioned by name by Wit. I mean, we're getting so Cosmere focused that we're gonna eventually find Yolen. That's gonna pop up at some point. I feel like some of our characters, some of our heroes, at some point have to somehow get to Yolen before we get the prequel, you know, Dragonsteel series.
I find it odd if it's at Analsium that the G isn't capitalized, or that it's not Death of God as opposed to a god. That's what makes me confused in some ways.
I think only Hoyd calls him God, like with a capital G. Everyone, well, I guess we haven't on Roshar. We haven't really heard anybody else discussing it in Alcium.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, unless maybe Yasna has said anything. I don't know. I think it was just Hoyd. But it seems like, you know, people call honor a god, but they don't, like, whenever we see it with like a capital G, it's always Aiden Alcium.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, like I said, it could be something else. I just feel like that's what makes the most sense. And I feel like that little line, and that line might not even be important, like, because Brandon does this from time to time. That line itself might not even be important in this book or in a Stormlight book. That might be important in Mistborn Era 3 or something that we don't even know about yet. So, like, that just might be a throwaway line that he's using, and we're going to hear that reference by the Ghostbloods during, you know, Era 3, the Ghostbloods, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's because to go back to Josh's point about how it would point to any splinter, I mean, it could be keyed to a particular shard's investiture. I mean, I would certainly potentially refer to the thing around Cell as the current, right? Like the maelstrom of energy could be the current, and that would have been, relatively speaking, right before Odium comes to the Rosharan system, if I'm remembering that right.
Yeah, then do we know, did it say in there, does that compass only work in Shadesmar?
I think so. That seemed to be the implication.
Grand Nell and the current, is that the death of a god? Is that the location in Shadesmar of the death of this god? Not necessarily the location in the real world?
I would think so.
Yeah,
because I mean, I think
since that's where they are.
If he's using it in Shadesmar, I would assume that it's a compass that works in Shadesmar. Do they have compasses, like actual regular compasses?
How could you use a compass in Shadesmar?
Well, it's a magic compass, right? Like it's like an investiture based. So it's not magnetic, it's tied to investiture.
Right. So that would lead you to, I mean, it seems like Aiden Alcium would be a pretty good guess then. Like, it wouldn't be honor, because then what would be a difference between honor versus odium versus any, like, it does, I don't know.
Yeah, the most significant death of a god would be Aiden Alcium, and if it's got that strong, like, if it's something that's used in Shadesmar, that the pull, the current, the Grand Nell is so strong that this device always points towards it, and that's how you navigate where you're at. That strength would have to, I would assume, would be the death of Aiden Alcium.
I'll be honest, I've read that chapter like a few times. I still have no idea what's happening. So
that's totally fair. Okay, let's jump back then. Who did Shallan create? What's your bets?
Who did Shallan create?
Yeah, well, just because her first interaction with Adolin in this chapter is, "Are you real?" So, who in the past has Shallan created that is still running around as a physical created light weaving that we're going to have unveiled?
That was a reference to the whole Dre thing, that she was like, it sort of was messing with her brain. Do we think she's done it before?
I thought it was in reference to the fact that she created Radiant like 2 seconds prior to that, and then as she's running through, she runs into Adolin, and she's like, "I didn't create you, right? You are a real person."
Oh, 100%. Like, that's the text thing. I'm just wondering with Shallan's with Shallan, I'm always wondering, what has she forgotten? What has she done before that she doesn't remember anymore?
Yeah.
She does create like an Adolin illusion. So maybe she thinks like it's still in that same chapter, right? Like she has an alternate Adolin for the version
prior to that. I think she made a like a normal Adolin illusion, and then she made a what did he call it? What did the fuse, the super crazy fuse, call it? That he wanted to tell him that, what is it?
Substantiation?
Substantiation
or something like that. Yeah. That, you guys are doing. I don't know why they would ever why their order would ever make that illegal, but apparently they did at some point.
So my read on that is so Abidi, the fuse says, he calls what she did making radiant substantiation.
Yeah.
I think my understanding of that is that it was limited by honor. Like, we know that honor like limited some things that they could do, and I think that honor being dead allows her to do things that people in the past couldn't do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I mean, you've got Honor being dead. You've got Shallan with 2 Spren. You've got maybe
And
Daughter of a
she's got
Herald.
that too.
You know, you've got 3 potential reasons as to why Shallan could maybe do that differently. And I don't think she's made anybody recently, but it's just one of those things where Shallan in particular has me twitchy to be like, okay, what is the thing that we're going to read later and go, oh, that was the thing we were supposed to pick up on, that Shallan had done this in the past? Or because honestly, for a while there, I was worried the brothers were light weavings. Even before Substantiation came out, I was like, she's going to get back and find out that her brothers really died years ago. And,
She's been faking them this whole time.
Mm-hmm. Steve says, we know humans were chased to Roshar by Odium. Do we think we are going to get, I think he's saying, or do we think we're going to see that in the book? Hold on. Sorry, TikTok thought we were not active. I don't know that I would agree that humans were chased to Roshar by Odium.
I think he followed them.
Yeah, I think maybe it was the opposite. They went to Roshar and Odium followed. Do I think we're going to see that in this book or a future book? Yes. I think in this book it's very possible, given all the talk about spiritual realm shenanigans and the ability then to see things that have already happened. Seems very likely.
I think... Oh, go ahead, Shane.
There's also this weird thing in the chapter where she hears a voice leading her towards Adolin, and she's like, "What was that voice?" Any thoughts about that?
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's the souls of the beads speaking to her, because she's a 2 bonded radiant. I don't know. Like the beads are guiding her.
There are a couple of other weird bead things there's like 1, 2, or 3 times in the chapter where she's like, oh, I need to find this very specific thing, and then she's like, oh, I got exactly what I wanted. That was weird.
Literally says it's a like that's crazy coincidental that I found it. Yeah.
I think there might have been something last week too where something, I can't remember what it was.
The whisper though. The only thing I can think of is somehow the beads, like the souls of the beads or whatever they are, just somehow relaying that to her. Because outside of that, I have no idea. I don't know. The other thing though, we can bounce back to this, but we're all assuming that the music spread at the end that got up to Adolin, that was Sureblood, right? That was Sureblood's bonded friend. Right. I just want to make sure we're on that.
That was so good.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, because they didn't say it out loud, but I was like, we're just it's a natural assumption that was Sureblood's music spread. So, which is really sad, but also cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It was so sad.
Yeah, it was. Anyways, less sad stuff.
Is Abadi going to come back?
Oh yeah.
Is that going to be like our recurring like mustache twirling bad guy for a little while?
I think this is our pursuer for this book.
The pursuer.
Yeah, but I think he's gonna. I don't know if it's. I mean, I think it'll be a Shallan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if it'll be a Shallan. Well, yeah, he specifically says he hates Lightweaver, so it'll probably be a Shallan foil for this book. Somebody that comes back because he hates Lightweaver so much.
It would be really funny though.
When they were fighting though, and Adolin was up there and he was fighting with it, I really thought Maya was gonna pop up somehow, and Adolin was gonna start having radiant powers and Shadesmar of some kind, just with Maya right there, with how much she's been talking and like her smiling at him and the relationship they have. When that battle was going on, like Shallan bursting with doing her thing, cool. I like that's cool, but I really thought we were gonna get an Adolin moment of like, hey, maybe there's more to this bond between Maya and Adolin than I kept waiting for, and it didn't happen. But I feel like it's got to be a foregone conclusion at some point, unless Brandon really takes us for a loop.
I don't think he is. I think there's a bond between them, but I don't think he's going to be a Radiant. I don't think he's going to get Radiant powers. I think that would kind of defeat I think I like the idea of him being the normal one, quote unquote. Like he's sort of the, if every single character becomes a Radiant, then it's, is it like too much?
I don't disagree with that. I agree that I think the whole everybody becoming a radiant thing can be done too much. But I just feel like Adolin has been set up so well with Maya that it's just such a satisfying conclusion for her to wake up and
Right.
he
I think it would be nice. Yeah, I think it would be nice if she like wakes up, but then they have because I think who is it? Not Ivory. What's the Blended says like there is a bond between you, but it's not a Nahel bond. Like it's something else. So it'd be nice if like they had some sort of bond, and like she restores herself or something, but then he doesn't get radiant powers. Because I think that they've set up this nice thing where Adolin's like, I'm gonna find my own path. Like I don't need to be a radiant like everybody else in my family. And, yeah.
I think it's significant that Maya is the one to swear the oath in Rhythm of War. I think that's a hint that something different is happening. Because at the trial, she's the one who says strength before weakness, not Adolin. So I think it is something different than the oath journey that Honor and Ishar ordained. And perhaps with the death of Honor, there's room for a different Sprend human bond to happen. I'm hoping something different happens. I would love the idea of, at minimum, Maya being able to change shape. Like that would be a really cool turnaround. It's like Maya, he can summon Maya and she can be a blade or a katana or an axe or, I think, who was saying last week that they wanted to see that, where Adolin is now able to use every type of blade for every situation that he needs. Gary maybe was saying that. That'd be wonderful. Be super cool. And just to see Maya restored would be wonderful.
Which I mean, I think that's on its way. Her getting restored, it's got to be. But yeah, I don't know.
He could pull an Elokar and just have her stabbed with an anti-investiture blade 3 chapters from now.
If Maya dies, you're right.
I'm just saying
Maya
that's.
Dies,
Those are awful.
Technically possible.
Is that not? I mean, if let's rewind, let's do Oathbringer, right? If we're these many chapters into Oathbringer and you love Elokar the way that we love Maya, you're like,
Nobody
oh, Elokar's.
loves Elokar. Nobody loves him that much.
Listen, I liked Elokar's journey, but Maya's different. Maya's had her moment and lived through it. Elokar was about to have his moment and then died. Right? Maya's moment was last book. She made it. She's through it. Now if she dies, it's way more tragic. Elokar, his moment was snatched away. So I would be much more heartbroken if Maya goes.
Oh yeah.
If Maya, like I said, if Maya dies, I riot. It's I'm done. I'm putting the book down and I'm done.
Somebody did point out, I kind of want to do a search on this now because I've not done any data research on the view of Elokar for those people who listen to Michael Kramer's take on Elokar versus people who read it without any audio interpretation. Because Michael Kramer does go super nasally, super like whiny voice for Elokar almost the entire time. So I would be interested to see if there were people, if more people liked him that just read it versus audiobook. Because I know almost every audiobook reader that I've talked with just is not a fan of him at all, which is fair. Like he makes a lot of bad decisions and does a lot of bad things to our characters.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who really likes him? I mean, like even by Oathbringer, it's sort of like, even when he did, you're like, oh, he was just getting better. But nobody's like, man, Elokar is just like, no, nobody's saying he's their favorite.
I don't know. Lord
Loopy, nobody turned to Oathbringer page 1 and was like, can't wait to find out Elokar in this book is like my highlight. What's going to happen?
Yeah,
no.
I would have liked to, I like the idea of what could have been with Elokar, but I'm not unsatisfied with the way that he went and what it meant for our other characters. Like, I liked Elokar in that. Like, I don't think I'd like him as much if he hadn't died, to be honest with you. I think I like him more as a character because he died.
It's the Firefly effect, huh?
It makes him, he's a tragic character that, in retrospect, you're like, oh, he could have been so great.
But could have been.
Well, I think he was a hero in the end, right? Like, he saved his son, and that was, but it was sort of the end of his arc, right? He had done everything that he was going to do. He had become a better king to a certain extent. He had given up his, God complex. Like, he'd worked through that, and so it was the end of his arc. Which Brandon usually does. Brandon doesn't usually kill off characters in the middle of their arc. So, which is why I don't think that Adolin's gonna die. But
Well,
I have a little bit. But
well,
I have other...
he had to die so we could get Queen Yasna, we could get Renarin and Adolin not going with their oath, and then we eventually get King Kaladin. I mean, he had to die. He had to die. Butterfly effect. King Kaladin, King of Urithiru, right? So.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I'm worried about that with the death rattle in mind that involves the fallen tower, the fallen crown, and the fallen spear. Now, maybe the fallen spear is that he retired and that's the fallen spear, but that makes me worried that somebody's going to take up Kaladin's thing as well, which is not great for Kaladin at that point.
I feel like at the beginning of any of these books, when a character is offered some great opportunity, it just comes crashing down. So,
oh man, we have some comments. Sandalorian says, "Why conflate Maya speaking part of the oath with swearing the oath? No one accepted her words." I will respond to that since I'm the one who brought it up. I would say that I don't think any of the first ideals are accepted. Like the life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. Those seem to happen almost in the background for most characters, without an "these words are accepted" type moment. Zach, Lord Loopy the Khandra, said, "Not my favorite, but he gets a bad rep because he had paranoia." As to Elhokar, I'm not sure how I feel about someone who hates Lirin and loves Elhokar, so I might have to think about that for a minute.
Well,
Lirin.
I can kind of... I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for Lirin, but it is different. Lirin he's pretty unlikable in Rhythm of War for a time.
LHS.
Yeah, I'm not sure what LHS means. Does
Lirin hates Syl.
Yep, that's it.
Lirin hates Squad?
Oh, I bet it is. Oh, it is. Is Lirin Hate
Oh.
Squad. That's hysterical. Let's see. Steve said, I don't know. I done audiobooks and physical. I think it's saying I did audiobooks and physical. I like him near the end, but up until then, he was whiny and spoiled. I mean, he was absolutely. Yeah, he should have. Anyway, I'm reading Way of Kings again right now, and it is really sad and hard to watch Dalinar just get walked all over by this nonsense king. Sandalorian says Kramer's Elhokar is a Dilrod. I mean, he's very whiny voiced. He really is. Sandalorian says design will do better with wit.
As opposed to Elhokar.
Yeah, Design and Elhokar would have been a very strange team up because they are both so snarky and so not helpful.
Well, and design and wit work so well together, especially if you after reading Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, like design and wit are just they're so perfect. Like they fit so good together. So spoilers for Yumi, sorry. If anybody in here hasn't read Yumi, oops.
That's like the premise. It's interesting. It's hard to imagine their personalities. If she comes across to me as I think that with Elhokar, their dynamic would be she would come across as very motherly to me, is how I'm imagining it, very kind of I don't know, be a little bit of a guiding hand on maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe this is, you should be doing this.
I actually think it would have been a bit like Syl and Kaladin because Elhokar is so straight-laced, has no sense of humor at all.
Yeah.
And, Design is very perky and fun, whereas Kaladin he's a little bit more straight-laced and Syl is a little bit more perky and fun. So.
Yeah, I can see that.
But we'll never know.
Sandalorian adds, as a dad, I get Lirin, but he didn't have to stay stuck for so long. And I agree with that also. I feel for Lirin's attempts to do the best. And Lord Loopy says, I get what you're saying, but I hate him for the exact same reason.
Well, Lord Loopy and I have had this discussion before. I'm a bit more lenient with Lirin because I do think that if you look at him as a very human I mean, I think his philosophies are stupid, but he, you know, at least he has convictions. But it's also like this is somebody who's in intense pain, who's lost 2 children. He thought that Kaladin was dead, and believes that it's his fault. And so you have to like, I think it's you have to remember that he's human as well, you know. And so that's basically what Hasina says to him is like, you have to stop blaming yourself for what happened to Tien, and
he's gone through a ton of trauma.
Say that again?
He's gone through a ton of trauma, and he just overcorrects when it comes to trying to protect his kids. I mean, it makes sense.
Right.
And it's all, I mean, and most of it is, it's out of love for Kaladin. Like, you just, you know what I mean? He's almost overbearing. It's, you know, how many overbearing fathers, it's a trope that we've seen a million times.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of times it's from a different direction than where Liam was going. So,
yeah. I also really appreciated, somebody pointed out to me that Lirin would have grown up during the Gavilar unification wars. And like that would have been his experience with warfare, is just Light Eyes fighting over who's going to be in charge. And then the result is Light Eyes continuing fighting over who's going to own which land. And so it's just like, what war was ever going to help anybody? They didn't have demons trying to kill all of humanity. Not that the Singers are demons, but they think they are.
So I'm sure you guys talked about this prior, but it got brought up again just because it was in, well, no, I think it was from the last chapters anyways, but the significance of the flute in Kaladin, and that Wit is basically telling him to learn how to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys talk about that like last week or something? Any of the significance on what the flute is and like what the playing that rhythm could mean, what it would attract, whether it's a spren or does it attract the wind? Like,
I think we talked about comparing it to Navani, right? Like Navani learning the rhythms and how that kind of moved her forward in her understanding of things. We also talked about how his flute is said to have a different capacity.
Yeah,
like
what's special? Dude, that's
right.
That's the other thing too. I don't even remember him getting it back. I'm assuming that was in Rhythm of War. That's the one I have not reread. Did he get the flute back in Rhythm of War?
Lift finds it and has it in her stash, and then I don't remember if on page she gives it back to him or not. Yeah, the horse happens at the horse I know happens at the end of Rhythm of War. I don't remember when he gets it back from Lift's stash, but there's an interlude where Lift is like crawling through the vents, and she comments how she has a flute in that stash, is what I remember.
He definitely doesn't have it by Dog and the Dragon, because Kaladin says, like, you got your flute back. And he's like, no, it's a dream, idiot. Like, so it's clearly not then. But the Dog and the Dragon is a lot earlier than I remember it being. For some reason, I always remember it being like towards the end of the book, but it's actually more closer to the middle. So,
yeah, Rhythm of War is the one that I've not reread. I've been reading a bunch of other books, so I haven't gotten to reread Rhythm of War yet. So, and I probably won't prior to the release, actually. But.
It's at the end of Rhythm of War when Dalinar and Kaladin are chatting, and Kaladin looks over and sees the flute there, and he's like, "Huh?" And Dalinar says that Lift found it, and like recommends. He's like, "Oh, you should check out this merchant bin or something." And she found the flute in this merchant bin, so then Kaladin goes there and then finds the horse as well.
That makes sense. I'm not sure that I understand how Lift knew to give it back to Kaladin and or to give it to Dalinar to give to Kaladin. That seems odd. I'd have to think about how that happened. But
he says I should have said this but I hadn't read it all. Lift had this. She said that David recognized it as yours. So
there we go.
David.
Good old David.
And how about David getting a spren?
Yeah, I love that so much.
And the spren that, hold on, and just because I didn't go back and reread those chapters, the spren that David had, was that the one from, that was the one that Shallan commented on not being there, but it just came back early, right? Was that the same one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Shallan was like, why isn't she here? I thought I got to her, but she just came back, or went earlier than the other ones, right?
Yep.
That was what I was saying. Okay, I just wanted to triple check because I didn't go back and reread it. I was like, I think that's the same name. But...
She's in Rhythm of War. She's like a really annoying, I think she's the one who is like,
she's like the guy.
With Shallan.
Yeah.
And like helping her from place to place, and then Syl's like, "Oh, her? She's so annoying."
Yeah. Yeah. I
You're
love
like, yes, she was really annoying. Yeah.
Lusitania or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Lucentia, maybe.
Lucentia.
Yeah,
Lusitania's I
something
think
like
the
that.
name.
Tanya's the boat.
That's the boat. Yeah.
Lusitania.
Yeah, man. That is one of those moments where, yeah, Brandon is famous for those little. You have to remember the name, or you have to remember a description, and if you don't, you're gonna go on Reddit later, and some redditor's gonna go, "Oh, did you see this person's here?" And you're like, "What are you talking about?"
I do love though that still just going around talking about how annoying all the other honor spren are. Like everyone that was mentioned, she's like, well, they're annoying, they're boring.
They are, to be honest.
mean,
they were like
Compared to Syl, right? The
Yeah,
adventuring daughter of
Syl-
honor that's running out there.
Well, in her personality alone, she's the outlier when it comes to the honor spren. So.
right. Do we want to get to the Ba-Adom thing?
I have it pulled up. I will kill you. I will burn everything you love. I will exact vengeance in a river of blood. I will rampage across this world until not a single human remains drawing breath. Betrayers, thieves, monsters, I will send you back to the flames from whence you...
Awesome.
So I'm really
Gosh.
thinking Ba-Adom might end up being an ally. Don't know how I feel about that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're assuming that it's Ba-Adom. We don't have any confirmation of that, right?
Well, no, I think no, we kind of do though, because the face that shows up is the face that shows up in her drawings that Collect says is one of the manifestations of Ba-Adom, right? So I think that's that's supposed to be like a heavy hint towards yes, that is at Ba-Adom. Well, I just don't know if we know if that's a current iteration bleaking through the spiritual realm or if that's like a Ba-Adom like echo from the ancient times. I don't know if that's been like a confirmation type thing. Like if that's what it is. If it's like a fortune that she's like literally bleeding through because of Shallan's connection, or if it's like a Shallan's connection to Roshar is giving her that glimpse, but it's a version of, because he mentions it's different versions of, like when Kalek is drawn, he mentions different versions of the future. Like that might not be an accurate version of what bottom is. It's one that could be, but it doesn't mean that it's one that is. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could be a vision of the past. It could be a possible vision of the future. It could be connecting to her in her prison in the spiritual realm, and it's allowing... I mean, just like in the same way someone can manifest in Shadesmar from physical to Shadesmar, logically something could manifest from spiritual to Shadesmar, since it's the intermediary zone. And Sandalorian says the book says it's Ba-Adom Mishram. The wording is it's the one that Shallan had sketched, which Kalek had identified as Ba-Adom Mishram. So presuming that those people are correct, I think we're at least supposed to believe it is at this point. Seems likely. A crowned female and singer. That's where I'd put strong money on it being
another really
her.
weird scene with like she's formed in beads and like Adolin slamming a sword to her face. It's like cool imagery, but I'm like, well, I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, that whole scene, I'd like slowly read it because I was trying to comprehend exactly what was happening because it was so like just random, not random, but like it was just you had to make the connection because she was so confused, and so I think that's why you or the reader were confused at what was happening. I mean, it was good. It was just I was trying to wrap my head around exactly what was going on.
It is interesting that it happens when she's considering pretending something. Like it seems to be connected to substantiation in what she's doing. She's like, "Oh, pretend that." Her vision started to spin again. The beads trembled, and then they formed the face. I am starting to wonder if this isn't what a spiritual realm being looks like manifesting in Shadesmar. Like the Spren look different in the physical realm when they manifest there from Shadesmar. Is forming a face out of the beads a similar in concept to what we like? Thinking about dimensions, right? Like a one-dimensional being that manifested in a two-dimensional space would look different than a two-dimensional being in that space, if that makes any sense. So I'm wondering if it's something like that. Sandalorian says Shallan tells her new truth, and now she's a fourth oath light weaver? Question mark. And will it have unintended consequences because she swore her oath while she's physically in Shadesmar?
I don't think
Thoughts?
her being in Shadesmar. I don't think her being in Shadesmar will have anything to do with it. I don't remember what oath we're up to with Shallan. Somebody else can.
It can't be higher than 4 because we don't have any fifth ideals. I doubt that they'd have Brandon would have Shallan be the first, right? Because we have the 3/4 because it's mentioned that it's Yasna was the first, then Kaladin, and then that random
Dami,
radiant Dami, who's
Stone Warden. Now I will say, it would be the best truth of all for Shallan's last truth to be, "I am a fifth ideal Lightweaver, and I always have been." Seems highly unlikely. Seems very anticlimactic. But, I mean, gosh, Shallan, who knows? I mean, I will say the only side effect I could imagine is if a Radiant were to have sworn their third ideal, they wouldn't get a blade in Shadesmar, right? Because their Spren is already physically present in Shadesmar. So that would be a potential unintended consequence. You'd get a power up, but you wouldn't have access to a blade right away.
Did we hear a lot about that Dami in Rhythm of War when they're in the Imo campaign? Because if he reached 4th ideal right after Kaladin, I mean, he had to have started bonding his friend a while ago, right?
Maybe.
Well, I mean, I guess he could have just gone really quick, but you would assume that he'd been on this journey for a long time too, right?
Or maybe he's just worse or less damaged.
Maybe.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be a Stone Warden. I'll stand where others fall. Sure, let's go."
How do you remember all this? I cannot remember the different. I can't even remember the ones for like the Windrunners. You have an incredible memory.
The main people have been memeing about Dami because at least on on the 17 shard Discord, people were just laughing because when the Zelion minifigure came out, they did like the minifigure campaign, and they were like, "Oh, Zelion!" They made this big deal, and Brandon was like, "Oh, this is it's Zelion." People were just like thought that was hilarious that like they were hyping up this character that like nobody knew who it was at all. Especially on Tumblr. I saw lots of jokes on like Tumblr. And I got like the same energy was happening when Dami on the 17 shard Discord, people were just like laughing it's the idea of like this character that's like, oh, this character is a big deal, but you've never heard of them before, and so people were just kind of laughing about. Yeah, people are like, Dami's my favorite character. I love Dami. He's the best, and so that's kind of.
It'd be funny if like that mention of him is like the only one that you never hear from again, and it's just like Brandon not like Well, it'd be funny, like, just number one, that's just Brandon trolling, just to mention this random 4th ideal Stone Ward when, all that stuff's going on. But it's also good fodder for an NPC in the RPG, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted somebody with no background, but he's a 4th ideal Radiant that's canon. Like, hey, guess what? We have this guy you can use now.
It was very convenient of him to wait and like swear his 4th ideal the day after Kaladin so that Kaladin could have his glory.
Well, there is that weird comment not weird, but I think there's a comment in Rhythm of War that some of the Windrunners might be, and some of the army might be subconsciously holding themselves back so as not to surpass Kaladin, right? I could see that. Yeah, not anymore, certainly.
I did love the evolution, though, in like how the men view Kaladin, though. Even I know it's already kind of happened, but like when Kaladin, having got his armor and all this stuff, when he goes in and he sees Scar and he says he reminds him of Teft, which was a nice moment. But like Scar doesn't like go, "Oh, Kaladin, hey sir," and all this stuff. He like starts talking about, "Hey, what's up, Kaladin?" He just like the relationship is so like established that he's just like, "Oh, what's up, Cal? Yep, I'm just throwing spears out the window."
So
like
great.
It's just such a good scene. Like I really enjoyed that scene a lot. It's just I don't know, that kind of stuff takes me back when I was in the military. So that's such a such a military thing to do, like no control over your weapon and it gets stolen, because they literally do that in real military. So that's just funny.
Yeah.
Like when I was in basic training, I had an M16 I had to carry around with me during a certain week of basic training, and if I didn't carry it around all the time, he would literally take it and he would smash it because they were fake. And if you like left it sitting there, our drill instructor would go grab it, and he wouldn't throw it out a window, but he would take it and he would call your name, and then he would just break it over his knee, and then we'd be like, cool, and then we would have to go the rest of the day carrying a broom or something. Like he would make us carry some random object. So it's just that was a really cool little thing. 'Cause I know Brandon was never in the military, but not that that's a unique thing to the Lefty Army. Obviously, that's something they do in all armies, but.
Yeah. Well, Scar is based off of his friend who is in the military, right? So I would imagine that's informed in some way,
Makes sense.
specifically by that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I did mention. Go ahead, Josh.
Going back to let me know if you had a comment on that topic, but a separate topic. Shandel, I seem to recall that you, after you read the chapter, were concerned about Shallan creating Adolin, like if Adolin was like just a fabrication, like Shallan is afraid of. Was that you that said that, or was that someone else? Concern that Adolin was like just a fabrication.
No, I think that was CJ.
Oh, okay.
I was not Adolin specifically, but just someone in her past.
Oh.
You know.
No, I meant like someone like earlier in the week. I thought I saw somebody commenting they were like afraid that.
I think that would be taking it in like it would be taking the story in such a weird direction that it would feel very, very out of place for this story. To be like, oh, then Adol, like she completely like, made him up, even though he's been there, he was there before. I don't know. It just feels like that would be. Yeah. It also just feels like this isn't a power she's had before. It's like this is like a brand new power we've never seen her do. So then to all of a sudden be like, and she also has this power that we've never seen her use before, but she's been using it this whole time, would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess she used it at Thaylen Field, right? When she has the light weavings that have some substance to them.
Some.
Right?
Not to the same degree.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, I don't know if so much that they had substance to them, more of along the lines she could feel them in a way. Like, I don't think she ever said they had, like, actual substance. She said she could feel them in a way that was...
Certainly not
some,
what she was doing with Radiant. Yeah, certainly not what she was doing with Radiant, where it was like a fully, physically manifested being.
Oh, yeah. Was anybody else surprised that Abadi survived that first stab? I definitely ended the previous chapter thinking, oh, Abadi's gone. Cool. We're good. And then to start this one with Abadi, like, just heals the wound. I was like, no.
She missed.
Should have aimed for the head.
Ah.
Oh, that's great.
We have like the same, because the CJ, we've also both been doing epic crossovers this whole week.
Yeah. I have one right now planned for the Athena song, the
God Games?
No, before God Games. The one where where she's thinking about not helping Odysseus the way she could have, and instead how she's going to help Telemachus. Sorry?
It's called the song that's called Maybe.
Yes.
I love that song. And that one has been so, just in a side tangent here for a second to geek about, epic, but that song seems to be the one that no one's really talking about from this saga. Like everyone's talking about Little Wolf and the God Games, which are all amazing, but I actually really loved that song. I think, was it you that commented the to fall is to learn one way, or was that somebody else? Somebody commented on my...
Oh, I didn't do that, but
Anyway.
Because I want to do one with that, because the idea is Kaladin thinking about Moash and how he didn't, really what he needed to do with Moash was be like, no, we're not going to kill the king, stop it, like course correct away, but he couldn't. And now instead thinking about Zeth in this book, about how he can help Zeth to pull out of his, I don't deserve to live, like I have the screams of, they're both in that like despair mindset, and so maybe this way we can I've been trying to kick around a couple of different ideas of who to map that on with.
How about that though too? Sorry, the goal on Dalinar to be like, hey, you did this, Kaladin, so go make everybody else mentally better just because you did it with 3 people. It's like, Dalinar, calm down. He's never done that before, and now you're asking him to go make one of the craziest people in the world less crazy.
Yeah. You also have to want to get better.
Which is why I think it's a misdirect, because I mean, it's an impossibility. I mean, like CBT can only go. It's not going to fix somebody in one day. Like Callan doesn't have magical healing powers, so at least not for other people. So to me that feels like a misdirect in terms of what actually we're going to be doing with Kaladin in cinema.
I think there's at least hope for Zeth, because we'll have magical flashbacks, right? So like we're naturally going to see Zeth's history, which is kind of like talk therapy, right? We're like, oh yes, as a child, this is what happened, and I'm almost envisioning that potentially the flashbacks would be Zeth telling Kaladin these things, and so we're going to get them as flashbacks, but that Kaladin also will get some version of them as he's going along, but who knows?
CJ, you mentioned in the Discord about something about the narration. We were talking about this in the Discord. You said you wanted to bring it up.
Oh, so I thought that was where you were going. I've seen people saying that that Brandon's writing style feels different in this book than in previous books. Some folks have compared it to like the Secret Projects, just more character perhaps in the narration and in like the narrative style than kind of the more window pane, just see what's happening kind of from previous. So I just wanted to, I thought that's where you were going, so I was giving you the opening to talk about it. But I didn't know if anybody had that feeling or had thoughts about it.
I do feel that way, and I don't know how I feel about it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Secret Projects, and I kind of liked how in Stormlight it's very clear window pane. You don't notice the narrator. And I noticed it right away in the beginning of chapter 10 when he says they had to stop flying and walk and soon entered the scribe's supply depot. The there felt very it felt like an omniscient narrator, which is something that Brandon has never done really in the Stormlight Archive.
When you say omniscient narrator, you mean limited? Do you mean?
No, I mean
normally it's. Go ahead.
It's not. No, normally it's limited, but this felt this didn't feel omniscient, I guess, because that would be like it just felt like noticeably the narrator.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the opposite because I always think of it as limited third person perspective. Like we're getting it's not Kaladin telling Kaladin's narrative, but it is somewhat limited to Kaladin's point of view to a certain extent. But then at times in Way of Kings, like there'll be things in the narrative that Kaladin couldn't know. It'll be like, oh, there were 1,000 troops over there. And it's like, Kaladin doesn't know how many troops are over there. Like there'd be a lot of troops.
I think that's pretty standard in third person limited. I think like true omniscient would be if like the narrator says like, little did he know there was something else happening. Like that would be considered like omniscient, whereas this, even things like there were 1,000 troops, like Kaladin couldn't know that, but that's pretty standard for limited. But I think you're right. Like omniscient is the wrong word here. It just felt very noticeable. Like the fact that he was saying which is more a thought. It just, I don't know, it felt strange to me.
That almost, I agree. That feels like Kaladin's thought,
right?
Rather than the narrator would say that in a typical Stormlight book. I think that's a fair assessment.
The only thing I'll say,
I was like, oh wait, there's a narrator. Whereas before, you don't notice it, but as soon as it says like then I'm like, oh, there's somebody telling the story. It kind of threw me for a bit.
The only thing I could see with him doing that though is to set up the library joke later, right? Because that's what it was, right? It was him saying he didn't know what it was called. Right.
Oh yeah, I think to set
up the joke, he might have just made that conscious decision because it wouldn't have hit at. I mean, we would have got it as the reader, but it wouldn't have been as hit as hard if he would have said the library, which Kaladin forgot the name of. You know what I mean? I think that's why he did it.
Here's a go ahead, Josh.
I think
and then
like
I have
all
a thought.
It needed, like if you made the text italic, then like that would like solve the problem, right? Like that would be like, oh, this is just Kaladin's thoughts. I do think that the narration is normally limited to like it's not Kaladin as a narrator, but it is like limited to his thinking.
Perspective.
And so I think that is the intent there. Like I think the is like Kaladin's mind, so I don't know why it wasn't like I guess let me back up. I think that all the narration is still within Kaladin's perspective. And so I think that, but normally like when you get the italics, it's like an explicit thought, like word for word. This is a thing he's like thinking in his mind. He's thinking these words. It's not just vaguely like he's thinking about these things, which is the normal case. But it's just kind of weird because it feels like a specific phrasing,
Right.
using the and not a.
You could have just made it. You could have just made it a thought. I wonder what they call it, Kaladin thought, or something like that. Would have been a lot.
Yeah.
It's weird because then right after it says that wasn't what they called it, but Kaladin, of course, couldn't read the sign, which feels like repeating what we already know. So I think it would have been maybe smoother if it had been like a thought or something. Not like a huge deal, obviously, but like just something that I noticed. I think I noticed it a few times, specifically in this chapter where it felt very much like. I was like, did somebody else write this chapter? Just going back to chapter 10, I was like, what happened here?
Shandel, I want to point out, like, 2 sentences later, it says, storms, what did they call the place? That absolutely feels like Kaladin thinking that to himself, not the narrator. Like, the narrator wouldn't say that to us. Like, that's a really weird... So it does feel like...
Right, I think that's why I noticed it, which was, it was just, it felt very like, whoa, this is new. This is something we haven't seen before.
Maybe it's just something they meant to. And somebody called Brandon's editor. John.
It's more of a Peter thing. Peter should have like
call Peter. Somebody call Peter.
I don't know. It might be a thing where I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they didn't do it that way.
Like I said, it's not like the huge deal, but.
And it's interesting that the did
for a second.
The did in that sentence is italicized. So maybe like the did was italicized, and they thought, well, we can't double italicize, so we got to leave the whole sentence.
But they do though. They will when they double italicize. They like unitalicize. Like you'll see a part that's like all italics, and then the emphasized word is unitalicized.
This is where the audiobook reader in me
do see that
fails you.
Yeah,
I have no idea how anything's templated in these books. I know occasionally things are uppercased, and usually Michael Kramer and Kate Redding do a good job of saying that word uppercase, which is just fascinating. I don't know how you speak a word uppercase. Let's see.
In terms of like the it feeling more the writing more stylized, I think that's actually just Brandon's writing getting better. I like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of the Secret Projects. I do prefer when it's a little bit less stylized, but I think if you go back and read some of Brandon's earlier books and then you go and read Rhythm of War, you can see like his prose getting better with each book. So it could just be that's what it is.
Yeah, him growing as an author. I mean, he did write this directly coming off the Secret Projects, right? So. Mm-hmm. It's bound that some of that is going to bleed, and his style is going to bleed a little bit into what he just wrote.
Yeah, I don't feel like Sunlit Man had a narrative voice like the same way that the other 3 did.
No, so Sunlit Man was sort of the odd one, which is why it probably was my favorite. But
it was mine.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sunlit was mine too. Sunlit, and then Tress. And then Yumi.
Sunlit Man was your favorite?
Yes.
Oh wow! I found most people. It's not my case.
Yeah, I feel like Tress is the majority of people's favorite, which is a fantastic.
Tress and Yumi seem to be the ones that people like.
Yeah. Sunlit by far was my favorite.
I agree.
DeLorean agrees with you.
Yeah, by far. I got the special edition, the UK edition with the. Yes, looks so good. If you guys are wondering what I'm doing, I'm painting my.
Nice.
Oh, cool. I'm with you, Lorian. I did not like Tress either.
You didn't like Tress at all?
I'll tell you.
I love Tress.
Here's the issue. I read it way later than everybody else because I waited to get my physical copy to read it, and so I had months of everybody saying how amazing it was. And then I read it, and I was like, really? But I don't think that humor is. I don't really mesh with Brandon's sense of humor always, and
What?
That was way more diplomatic than you started. I just want to point out you pulled that back real
I'm
hard.
being very diplomatic here, and so I think that like for me, it didn't quite work, and I'm not a huge fan of cozy fantasy. I'm not saying that I hated it. I didn't hate it by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that it wasn't necessarily for me. But I appreciate that other people really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think so. To me, Sunlit Man is like up here, and then Tress. I like Tress, but I agree. I think it's a little overhyped. I think it's down here. Whereas and then Yumi's like right there, just below Tress for me. I enjoy both those books, but I agree. I'm more of a like same. So, 100%.
Yeah. I think Brandon's really good at situational comedy, but his like writing funny lines don't always come across as funny to me.
I agree. Some of his humor is very honestly, and this is gonna dash my argument about people that really want it to be an anime. Some of his humor is very like almost like something you would see in an anime, like the corny, like over the top, like just something you. I don't know if any of you watch any anime, but that's to me that's how it comes off of, is what it comes off like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a huge anime person. I've watched them, but that's what it comes off to me as. And that hurts my argument that I don't want to see the Stormlight as an animation, but that's to me that's what it is, and I'm not a huge fan of that either.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, Yumi is a very Japanese anime inspired book, so I adore that style, and I adored Yumi, so that tracks.
Yeah, but I don't dislike it. I've just never really given it a shot. I don't think I started watching Attack on Titan recently, and it's okay, but it hasn't really kept my interest too much. I've watched a few episodes, but like 12 episodes. But
I still want to find the person that starts with Sunlit Man and doesn't like it, because I have not found one yet. Like as their first Sanderson book.
I feel like recently I saw somebody saying like, "Could you start with Sunlit Man?" And they were like, "Well, you could." I don't think it would be very anticlimactic. You wouldn't really feel the emphasis of it, you know.
Wasn't that brought up in somebody's comment section recently?
Maybe that's where I saw it.
There was an argument or something I could have sworn, and I don't think it was on Discord. I think it was on TikTok. But there was an
Emily. Yeah, you could be Emily. You could be fire. Created a filter effect that was like random book, and the one that came up was Sunlit Man. And then somebody in her comments was like, "That's awful. You could never do that." And I came in being like, "Hey, look, all I'm saying is I have heard from about a dozen people that started with it as their first book, and they've all loved it. And I've never met somebody that hated it as their first book. So I don't know."
Sunlit Man?
I would
I know. They describe it as like an old Western where like you're not supposed to understand the context and the history and all that. Or I even think like Indiana Jones, like you don't know what the Temple of Doom is and all that. It's just like, it's an adventure. You run in, magic stuff happens. Like they even have horses. I was thinking about this because Patrick Willems just did a thing about how every movie is better with trains. And I was like, oh, the sun is like a train that's like consistently moving towards you, and you have to like run away, and you jump on the scooters that are like horses, and it's a Western. It's just a space Western. And like the outlaw nomad rides into town, and there's a problem, and there's a bad guy that's like recently taken over the town, and he's got to help the locals fight against him. He solves their problem, and he rides off into the distance. And yeah, all this other Cosmere stuff is happening, but just works great as a Western.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it is more impactful if you know what's going on, because then you know the whole shock of seeing Sigil as a Skybreaker is a big deal. The whole shock of seeing like, him at the end on that planet and all, or him, seeing the what are those?
Ulida, the Fane.
Yeah, the Ulida, or not
Ulida people.
The Ulida's a name. What are they called? Josh, you know this, right?
I zoned out thinking about the Western.
The people from Yolen. What are they called? The third species from Yolen. Not dragon. The Shodel.
The Shodel. That's right.
Shodel.
That's right.
Ulida is the name of a dead shark. That all is more impactful if you know the history of everything. But like you said, I could still see you enjoying that story. Like I've seen some people say, like, and I've said this too, like when it comes to like Cosmere adaptations, I would almost think that I think it obviously be really cool to almost adapt Era 2 Mistborn first, with all of the Era 1 stuff as like this mystery background deity stuff, and then boom, you get the prequel, and then all of a sudden you see all those characters that are all of a sudden like, oh, this was Vin is the Ascendant Warrior, but you just know her as this mythical person, and you get all this storyline, and then Sazed is Harmony, all this stuff, and then boom, you jump back, and then the watcher of the show can be like, oh my goodness, that's Vin. How does she end up there? That's Sazed. He becomes God. How does he end up there? Like, it takes away some of the surprise, but also just that cool like world building where you get to go back and see the past. It's kind of like eventually when we get Dragonsteel, like we know where all those characters end up, but now it's gonna be really cool humanizing all those gods. You know, seeing the relationship between Reyes and Hoyd and why they hated each other, and seeing Tanavast and Corvellium all in that initial. You know what I mean? Like we know them all as these gods, but it's going to be really cool. And my most anticipated thing is to read Dragonsteel and see them as not gods. Yeah. And I think that's a cool way to do it. So I could almost see them. I could almost see somebody saying, "Hey, watch it, read Era 2 before you read Era 1, just for the." And see how somebody. I would love that social experiment of just having somebody do that. I don't want to ruin anybody's like.
Oh, people have done it. It's not even a social experiment anymore. Like, I know quite a few people who have done it that way. I know Jasonian on YouTube at one point had Alloy of Law as one of his entry into the Cosmere books.
Or even doing it like the Star Wars, like the way to watch it, or whatever, where you do like episode 1, 3, 4, and then jumping back and watch, or jumping. It's like episode 4 and 5, then jumping back, watching 2 and 3, and then jumping forward again. Like you can even do like read Alloy of Law, and then jump back and read Era 1, and then back up forward and read. Read Alloy of Law and Shadows of Self, and then boom, jump back, read Era 1, and then jump into Bands and then Lost Metal. That'd be a cool way to read it. That might be my next Mistborn reread. I might actually do it that way.
I love it. I do want to go back to the Sunlit Man for a second to say, because conversely, I have talked to plenty of people who really struggled to like Sunlit Man as Cosmere aware readers because they put so much pressure on themselves to understand all the references, and they're like, wait, am I missing something? Wait, was that a reference? And they're so in their own head about it that like they didn't enjoy it because they're like, oh wait, and it's
that's the one thing I think that people have to try to do when they're I try to not do that as well, and I find myself just like right now when I was reading, that stuff jumps out at me. Like even when I was reading the preview chapters, and that thing about the dead god jumps out at me, and I get so distracted by that sometimes it is hard to focus on the actual story. But I try to consciously pull myself out of that a lot.
I don't do that at all. Like I'm much more like just story focused. I'll let other people take care of the Cosmere stuff, and I'll hear about it later. Yeah. It's not that I really liked it. But I really liked Sunlit Man because it felt like it was an adventure. Whereas, with Yumi, that was sort of my issue with Yumi, was that I was getting really bogged down by the mechanics of it. And I was like, I don't really follow everything that's happening here. It felt like there were so many things happening. I still enjoyed Trust and Yumi. I still really liked them. I just preferred Sunlit Man.
Yeah, Sunlit Man, I agree. It was definitely my favorite of all of them, and probably because of the Cosmere connections. I think I interpreted a lot in that book different than to most people. Like a lot of people, the whole like the Kaladin scene, everybody's like, well, no, that means he's alive. No, that means he's dead. No, that means he's, you know what I mean? And it had so much fuel because I think Brandon purposely left it ambiguous. Was it did he think he saw? Was he shocked out of, oh, why is he here? Because he's alive, or is he shocked because, oh, why is he here? He's dead. Like, it could very well be any of those things.
Why is he here? He's honor. He's supposed to be bound to Roshar.
Yeah, he's a god. Why is this god visiting me? Like, what is, you know what I mean? He's a herald now. Why is this herald visiting me? Yeah. It does say all the heralds disappear at the end of the book, so that does mean something. Yeah. And there's only 2 witnesses left, which makes me think, I think hints towards Kaladin being gone. So there's only 2 witnesses left. I don't think it's going to be Kaladin and Zeth. I think they're both gone at the end of this book, whether they're dead or heralded or gone to Braze or off with Odium is for some reason, or off in the Cosmere. But I definitely think Zeth and Kaladin are gone at the end of this book. Kaladin's not going to be a king. He's going somewhere at the end of this book. And we're going to have King Dami. What's going to happen?
Or Dalinar's still around. You never know.
I think it would be weird to set up like Kaladin being king and all of that to then not do it. Like, Does it, I don't. I think like we're so used to Brandon misdirecting everything. Sometimes he just does. He does just set things up, and then that's what it is. So,
That's true, and he could very well end up being the king at the end.
I also think it's a big setup for like we're going to send off Dalinar and Navani, and the new, the new generation, Adel and Shallan Kaladin are going to take over. Personally, I think this is at the end of Dalinar. Whether or not he becomes a fused, or he sacrifices himself so he doesn't become a fused, or he dies, I think this is the last time we see Dalinar.
Yeah, my only thing is if Urithiru is going to be what it is, Navani either can't go or somebody else has to take over that bondsmith position. Would Urithiru go on without a? I guess it did in the past, right? When there was only one bondsmith, Urithiru still was Urithiru.
Yeah. You don't need
It wasn't hidden. Yeah, that's fair.
You can't.
Like, I think there's certain benefits to having her, like having the sibling bondsmith, I imagine, but like the tower has to be able to exist without
one. Yeah, that makes sense. There couldn't have always been a sibling bondsmith. Yeah, you're right.
You can't kill off Dalinar and not Navani. At this point, you just can't. After losing her daughter and then her husband and then her son and then her, it's just too much. You'd have to then. It's sort of like Vin and Ellen's. You can't separate them. If one dies, then the other one has to go also.
I want a second shiny golden linguist's call for Queen Lift.
Oh gosh.
That's
Let them eat
terrifying.
pancakes.
Oh.
That'd be great.
Did you just come up with that right now? That's a great line.
Welcome to my brain. They all just come out that fast, and most of them people do not find amusing. So, I mean, that's why I saw the Reddit post of like, I drew Dalinar young and old, and obviously they meant a young Dalinar and an old Dalinar. And I went, oh, like when you were a kid, you drew Dalinar, and now you're like 30 and you've drawn Dalinar again?
Oh, I really did not understand what you were saying there, to be honest.
It's a dumb pun. It is so bad. So bad. But yeah, it's I drew Dalinar young, and now I've drawn him as... And so I was like, oh, well, that doesn't happen very often. The book's only 15 years old. There aren't that many people who have gone from being young to being old. And both of those equally pop out of my mouth at the same rate. Let's see. Sandalorian says, the whole point of the Rhythm of War is to still be okay when Dalinar loses and has to serve Odium. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think it would be very, very bad for the Cosmere. I mean, Kaladin even makes the comment that he thinks some of the Radiants might join Dalinar in serving the fuse. I was like, oh my gosh, man, the humans... Kaladin does not have a good... that makes sense. What am I saying? Kaladin has a terrible opinion of the Light Eyes. Of course he thinks they would love to go and conquer the Cosmere with Odium.
I think maybe what Sandalorian means is that like that the Cosmere in general will not, meaning that like Odium, it's sort of going to work out the best for the rest of the Cosmere no matter what happens. Not Roshar is screwed, but but I think that's what you're talking about.
I almost feel like it has to be inevitable, though, that does happen in some way, shape, or form, right? Just because of what we know is going on in the future of the Cosmere with the war between Roshar or the war for, between Roshar and Scadrial and all that, and
that presumes that Scadrial's a force for good. What if Roshar is a force for good and it's stopping the evil Scadrians from doing things?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, when we get to that point where you get Team Scadrial, Team Roshar, I am 100% going Team Scadrial all day, every day. Team Scadrial,
What?
Team Kelthir, every day. It's gonna happen.
His favorite book is The Final Empire.
Oh.
Team Ghostblood, Team Scadrial, all day.
I'm with Kelsier, I'll give you that, but I'm also with the Rosharans over the Scadrians in general. So conflict of interest there, I guess.
I don't know. Have you? So I kind of originally was like that too, but after reading the Six of the Dusk sequel preview chapter, not all of the Rosharans are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but neither are all those Scadrians.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna have shitty people on both sides, I think. But I just personally think I'm gonna align more with the Allomancer Mistborn side of things. As much as I love Stormlight, I just have a thing for. Listen, I spammed comments in the live that Brandon did with the Brotherwise team that Katie was on, and I spammed the comments, and finally they did talk about it, not because of me, but I kept going, Mistborn Minis. Like, that's what I wanted so bad.
They've got to
And
be
they
coming.
did have the-
100%.
We did have the Scadrians in Sunlit Man, which I feel like are pretty awful.
That's true. But then again, you're also seeing it from the viewpoint of a Rosharan.
No,
Yeah,
they're
but
just doing
he's-
awful things.
I did not need any of his narrative to go, hey, that's awful. You are manipulating.
that's true.
So, yeah. I mean, they seem to be following some kind of Star Trekian non-intervention agreement, which actually feels kind of autonomous now that I'm thinking about that out loud, where they're not allowed to explicitly interfere until a certain
What is that
level
called in Star
of
Trek?
culture.
The first directive or the
Prime
directive.
directive, yeah.
We're a bunch of
Um,
nerds for knowing that, but
That's what,
What?
makes us nerds.
What? A bunch of nerds
Right.
in a 2-hour conversation about a book that comes out in December?
Um,
What are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know. I very much more appreciate the Skybreaker, right? He's a Skybreaker in the prequel, the Six of the Dust sequel thing. Just being like, hey, look, here's the contract. We'll let you keep 1 out of 100. We're not going to subjugate you the way they will.
was he a
You'll
Skybreaker?
I thought he was, but I might be just misremembering.
It's a little ambiguous.
In my brain, I thought he was a Windrunner.
Mm.
I could also.
It's a little.
Huh?
His
It wasn't-
glyph is described like a bird in flight.
Didn't he have purple light too, though? Didn't they say he had like a purple light, not a normal light? So he had void light, right?
I'll
It's a
look up
little
the-
unclear.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you got void light radiance out there in the world. That to me screams. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if
Sorry,
is it-
I guess we probably shouldn't talk unpublished preview chapters.
I
that
don't know.
are completely up for interpretation. Because he can absolutely change that entire thing if he wants to.
like Shannarok's red hair from the prologue.
Yeah.
I was so proud on the Sandersonian Cosmere Institute podcast. I made a joke about that being a red herring, and they named the episode Red Herring, and it made me so happy. I was
Nice.
like, yes.
I don't like that one as much as the let them eat pancakes.
So that's what I say. I shoot them all out. I love them all. They're my darlings. And then sometimes they get welcomed in, and sometimes they get, turned away, and that's okay. I can live with
I think the
that.
next time I draw a lift, I'm going to use that as my caption.
Oh, no. Don't encourage him.
What's Lift doing? We have not seen her bopping around just yet. I want to know what she's up to.
Same, because I think Lift is probably one of, if not the most important characters in all of the Stormlight archive. So that's probably why we haven't seen her yet.
She seems to just pop up at random times. Like she's not, it didn't strike me as odd that we haven't seen her yet.
Well, is she staying at Eurythero after that whole? We don't know if she's even staying at Eurythero after that. She might be back in Aesir with Yanagon, right?
Speaking of not at Eurythero, I need a Venli chapter. Like now, I want to follow up on Venli and the Chasm Fiends. I'm sorry, I know I asked about Lift, but we have an actual tease hook from Rhythm of War for Venli, and I need that followed up on.
We have so much to
Agreed.
do.
I want to see the listeners. Period. That storyline in and of itself is fascinating, and to see what happens to a fused who turns their back on Odium, like with Leshwi and stuff, like that's all very fascinating to see what happens. So
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that Leshwi's she didn't stay at Eurythero. I kind of want to see her and Kaladin team up. Although maybe we'll see that anyway. I don't know.
well, I mean, we don't know where the listeners are going. The listeners, very well, for whatever reason, there could be a plot device that gets them heading towards Shinovar.
Right. It seems like we have
Leshwi could
so
say,
much
"Hey,
to
this
do.
is where it started. We need to go here," and then. Like, there's no way Leshwi and Kaladin don't see each other in this book, so I feel like Leshwi has to make her way to Shinovar.
I don't know. We have so much to do in this book and so little time And I feel
That's
like
why I'm not convinced that I'm still convinced that it's got to be that 10-day thing's got to be like part 1, 2, 3, and then boom, part 4 and 5 is the aftermath. I feel like it has to be. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but
that like the contest happens on day 3, or that we like
no. Like day 1 through 10, or like is like part 1 through 3.
Oh, okay.
All of a sudden, we get to the back half of the book, and it's like, wow, the contest already happened. Something crazy took place, and now, you know what I mean?
right.
Like there's a revelation that's gonna happen at some point. Whit already talks about something that something has changed, which is obviously talking about Ray's dying that he doesn't know yet, but he knows something has happened. He feels that something has changed, and I think that's gonna be like a game changer when they find out that Taravangian wasn't that burnt corpse, that was Ray's, and Taravangian is now Odium, and like I just think that it.
How do you think they're gonna figure that out? Because like I said, I just finished Rhythm of War, and that scene at the end with Wit and Taravangian is so creepy. Just like the whole like repeating it over again, and you're like, wait, is this a misprint? Oh no, this is just. So I'm wondering, like, how are they going to? Is Taravangian just going to say, "I am Taravangian"? I don't think so, because that was the whole thing. Like Wit kind of catches on originally in the scene in Rhythm of War. He's like, "This doesn't sound like Ray's. You're too smart."
I think that Wit and Yasna are going to figure it out. I think Yasna's going to figure it out based on stuff that Wit says. Like I think that's what's going to be. I think Wit already knows something. Hoyt already knows something is going on, and he mentions it to Kaladin. And I just feel like Yasna's going to be the one that puts the pieces together and goes, "Hold on." I could be wrong.
I'm wondering if Dalinar is the only one who can figure it out, because he's the only one that knows Taravangian well enough.
And Ray's.
So that's a separate question, right? Who's going to figure out it's Taravangian?
Right.
Versus just that it's changed, because those are two separate reveals.
Right. Because I think that because if he says anything that's Taravangian like. Dalinar is going to be like, that sounds an awful lot like Taravangian. Whereas I don't know if Yasna knows him well, although she did spend a lot of time at Kharbrandt, so she might actually also.
Yeah, and then Wit knows Ray's well enough to where I feel like there's enough people who knew those characters well enough. Like even Dalinar, when it comes to Odium, has spoke with him enough to know him at least a little bit on how he is as a person. Wit knows him better than anybody.
Well, Wit, right? That's what I'm saying. That whole scene at the end of Rhythm of War, he's like, "Whoa, what happened to you? You don't sound like Ray's. That's too smart." And that's when Taravangian's like, "We need to redo this." He realized that Wit caught on to him.
I'm still disappointed that the coin wasn't a metal mind, and that was going to be the way that he figured it out. Because he's playing with a coin at the end of Rhythm of War, and so I thought I was really on the camp of. Hoyt looks as though he's been outmatched, but we're being told not to believe our eyes, and so Hoyt really wasn't outmatched. I think it's better if he isn't, but I was really hoping he wasn't. I'm sorry, I think it's better if he is outmatched. I think he was, but I was really hoping that coin was a metal mind, similar to in Mistborn, where he gives that metal mind to Wax, but. Doesn't seem like that was the case, because otherwise he would just remember immediately in this book, and it wouldn't be a mystery.
Unless he doesn't know to tap that middle mind.
Sure. But I guess it'd be like I just check it every now and then kind of thing. Maybe, I don't know.
Because you're not just because you have a coin that you're using as a metal mind, you're not always tapping into it, right? If he hasn't had a reason to tap into it, he's not gonna.
Sandalorian says Renarin might be a pathway with his future sight / ability to see things. That's valid. We just don't know enough.
I don't think Renarin's never been able to say, oh, like it's not a on demand, I guess is what I'm saying. Like it's very like his visions are very nebulous. It's never like what we need to know right now. So I doubt that that's the case.
Renarin will find out if the plot demands that Renarin needs to find out.
Sandalorian says he helped Todium rise. I mean, I think he mechanically helped, but I don't know that Renarin knew what he was doing. Because he helps deliver Nightblood, right? Is that what happened? He delivers the spren for Ja'anat, something like that.
Yeah.
I think so. I always read that as like he sees that Taravangian dies, and so he's saying because he says I'm sorry. So why would he be saying I'm sorry you became a god? I think he foresaw that something bad was going to happen to Taravangian, and he interprets it as Taravangian dies. That's how I always read it.
Yeah, I'm inclined as well in that direction.
He
Yeah,
did like
Sandalorian.
he does
Go ahead,
like
go ahead, Josh.
deliver. He delivers Sprin. Like I guess there's like some corrupted Sprin that are captured in gemstones that he like delivers to Taravangian. It's never really clear like why he did that.
I mean, I'll tell you, my mother's biggest gripe with Rhythm of War is that they don't kill Taravangian. She's like, why wouldn't they just kill him? He's clearly like, they just keep him alive for the sake of plot, because there's no legitimate reason to keep him alive.
Because Dalinar can't let him go.
I know, but Dalinar, come on, like, you know.
Yeah, no.
Just like
Dalinar does a lot of questionable things.
Yeah. Just Sandalorian, I don't think that he constantly has like visions. I think they come on him, like they come upon him at certain times, and he can recall them. But none of his visions are like, do this and then this will happen. It's all like, I see this potential happening. So I don't know if it's like, I don't think that he could just dial in and be like, tell me what happens right now. I don't think it's like that. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
looking
I
back
think
at the gems. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say I agree. I think he doesn't have a lot of control over. He definitely very much doesn't have control over like when he gets to see things or what he gets to see. At least at this point.
I think the only scene where we've ever seen Renarin actually showing a vision is that scene with Dalinar in Rhythm of War, unless I'm wrong. And it's very like obscure. It's just him interpreting it. I think the whole point of Renarin is that he kind of shakes up the Cosmere, that he can see multiple possibilities. And so that's why Taravangian is so afraid of him, is because he's sort of a wild card. So I don't think it's as like set in stone.
He does like the big thing in that case is that he like was able to capture it. Like so normally he just like has them and like that's it.
Right.
But Gliss was able to like hold on to it, so he was able to like save it and bring Dalinar in to give Dalinar a chance to see the same thing. But he didn't have any control over like anything other than that. They were just able to like save it in that case.
Right.
I'm gonna guess. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chapter. My guess is the Spren somehow are what connects him to Odium in that moment, because he's getting stabbed by Zeth, and then all of a sudden Odium says, "You should not tempt me today, Taravangian. I've lost my chance." So like all of a sudden after Zeth shatters the gemstones, corrupted Windspren, he thinks they're Windspren, maybe they're Stormspren, whatever, swirl around him, and then he's talking to Odium. So I'm wondering if it's like the mechanic by which he goes into Shadesmar or whatever partially to talk to Odium. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think that the Spren were doing there.
The way I read it is that it draws Odium. He does that to draw Odium's attention because Odium is like earlier in the book he's like squishing Syanot's corrupted Spren because he's like worried Syanot is like undermining him in some way, and so like the Spren get free and it like makes Odium realize, oh, there's something going on over here, and then that makes him appear.
Doesn't Syanot come and talk to Taravangian about, what does she talk? She talks to him about something.
Oh, Taravangian says that. He says he needed a way to summon Odium. Those gems, that was what they were for. So yeah, in some way, whatever and I like your mechanic, because Syanot does think about how she's going to use the Windspren to distract him from the one he sends for Relaine. She sends for Relaine to Bond. Interesting.
So what do you guys think is going to happen next?
Well, I haven't read any of the. I'm still reading them as they come out. I know that all of them have technically
Yeah.
been released at this point, but I'm still sticking to the.
Well, they're not like easily accessible. There's hoops to jump through.
Are they like? I haven't read the future. Are they like pictures of the chapters though? They're not even like the chapters themselves. It's like
Oh, are
the
they?
future ones. Oh, I don't know. I thought that's what they were. I could have sworn I saw something where it was like an image of the chapters, not actual.
Oh, I mean, I could see. I've thought about. So, some of us have gone to NetGalley, which will basically you can sign up as a reviewer / content creator and just request advanced reader copies digitally of books. And the whole 33 chapter section is available that way. So I have access to that. And I could screenshot each of the pages. That seems very unwise and very silly to do. So maybe somebody has done that and has like set them out
Yes,
there
I thought that's
in
what
the
I saw. I
ether.
could absolutely be wrong.
Wouldn't surprise me because I don't think because you can't like from what I understand you can't like just like download an EPUB of it or a PDF or whatever. And so
Correct.
like I guess if you wanted to like distribute it as against the agreement that you make when you accept it, then like that's how you'd have to do it.
Yeah, I could have sworn that's what it was. It was like screenshots of the chapters, not actual like. But again, I didn't read them because I don't want to get ahead. I like sticking with it too. So
Yeah. I may or may not have sent Josh a all caps Discord rant about not having seen something coming in one of the upcoming chapters. Oh, it made me so mad.
When do they give? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good. I was just gonna say one of those moments where kind of it was a little bit like you were talking about Shandel, where sometimes Brandon is like breadcrumbs, and other times it's just like in your face, and I can get so caught up in following the breadcrumbs that I miss like a very clear. Oh yeah, like obviously that's where that's gonna go, and I just I haven't yelled in response to a reveal in a very long time, and that one got me. So, what were you gonna say?
we're not gonna go find these chapters.
You can wait. It's not that much further.
CJ, the way that Brandon describes the way that if you've ever have you listened to his lectures, his writing lectures? So the way that he describes it is always like if you have like a kid, you tell them that they're gonna get like a train for Christmas or something, and then you like hype up the airplanes, and then the kid doesn't get a train but they get an airplane. So I feel like he does that really well where he he says it's gonna be this, but then he pulls a switch on you. But sometimes he just does set things up and then they happen. So that's why I was like, some of these, not everything is a misdirect. But I was gonna ask, when do like the actual reviewers get like full arcs? When do like the full review? Is it like I don't remember for Rhythm of War how early it was before we started getting like full reviews of Rhythm of War.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. You said the full book, the whole book.
Yeah, because they give out like full arcs to some like YouTubers and stuff.
I don't know if they're gonna. It's not until pretty later on, I think. Like weeks before maybe, or when they do, there's like a date.
Right.
There's like an embargo date where like they get it earlier, but they're not allowed to talk about it until like a week or two before or something like that. I mean, even then they're not allowed to do spoilers, obviously, but like they're not supposed to say anything before a certain date at all. Mm-hmm. I don't think they get them until like a month before the book is out.
Yeah, so November sometime.
I think so. I could be wrong though. It's hard. I can't keep track of it. They used to give like physical copies, and I don't think they do that anymore. I think it's just electronic now. So, anyways.
Yeah, I was looking back to see. So Lost Metal was on it. Maybe date. When did it release? That would be easier. Metal release.
I definitely remember with Rhythm of War that it came out before, like it was before the book was released. I think probably it was like a week or two. I don't think it was that long before.
What did they say? It's 1,200 pages. Is that right?
13. There's an exact number, and I can't remember what it is. 13,344 or something like that. That's not right. That's not how math works. There's some 3s and 4s. 1344, 1334, something like
I
that.
thought Rhythm of War was was like 14.
Maybe the like the mass market might have been, but the hardback is I think 1280.
Hold on, I have the paperback. Let me check. Hold on.
Well, and then that's another question, right? What will the digital paper? That the pages are all different depending on the size, right? This one defaults to 332 pages digitally.
Oh no, the paperback is only is 1219. Is
1219.
1219, so
Yeah, 1344, I think is
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
what
13.
That's what the internet said. Well, that's
Something.
weird. I see both 1344, but that's the AI overview telling me that, and then in bibliographic information it says 1232. So that's fascinating.
No, they're wrong. It's not that. Bibliographic is probably it's probably an estimate based on like, this is what the last book was. We'll put the same number or something like that.
it's over 500,000 words. You could just type in how many pages is 500,000 words. It'll come up.
He did get it down. He got it down. 493.
Oh, great.
Interesting.
It's a long
Well, and
book.
this is also showing the international cover, so maybe there's a difference there in terms. But 200 pages seems unlikely to be. That seems unlikely. Yeah, Amazon says 1344.
It's a long book.
Yeah.
It's a big book. My point
Okay, I
was. Oh, go ahead, Shadle.
I have a question about Dragonsteel. I feel like I've asked this a million times and I keep forgetting the answer, so forgive me. Are we going to be able to buy the book at Dragonsteel without buying the package, like on Thursday or Friday?
I don't think
Not
that like
spending $80 on this book.
someone correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember differently. But I don't think like Dragonsteel will be selling it. But I think you could I think that like Barnes and Noble was there last time. Like they had a booth
Oh, that's interesting.
that they were like selling some copies at.
Okay, so
You can also
potentially,
like just find a local book, like a bookstore that's nearby. Like
right.
surely there's like a bookstore that's probably walking distance from the convention center, and they should have it.
So just have to go Friday morning and run out and get the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just on top of everything else, like another $80 for a book that I could get for $30 is just trying to save some money.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to Dragonsteel, so you guys have fun with that. I have a ticket, but I can't go. So I just offered my ticket to somebody who I won't name, and if they tell me they don't want it, I'm going to offer it up in the Discord. If anybody wants it. Only if this person tells me no, though. Which I'll be surprised. I'm shocked that this person doesn't have a ticket, or they might. I don't know. No names.
And if you end up struggling there, I know the Sanderson Collectors Guild Discord has been doing like trust transfers, like to keep everything from going crazy, because it's so easy to get scammed on the internet with this stuff.
Yeah, the person I offered it to is I know who they are. They're very yeah, but if they don't want it, I'm gonna offer it in the Discord. I'm sure there's somebody in our Discord somewhere that would be like, yeah, I'll take it because I give it to such and such.
Yeah.
And I'm offering it for free. Like I'm not asking for any payment back. I'm just gonna take it. So
That
I'm
is-
gonna follow Sandalorian's example and go to sleep because it is. So
It's not irresponsible o'clock yet. We're close.
It
We're
is for
nearing
me.
there.
Probably is.
Yeah.
But it was super fun chatting with you guys, and we'll do it again next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So that's good chapters tomorrow.
Are less shocking for me, anyway.
Is the shock that you're talking about going to be in the 2 chapters tomorrow? Is it a little?
No, I'm saying chapter 10 was really shocking for me.
Oh no, I'm talking about because he said there's an upcoming chapter that was shocking.
Oh.
There's a revelation. Is that in tomorrow's chapters?
No, I don't think so. I think we have one more week after that.
All right.
It's hard to know how many chapters they're going to release each week.
Yeah, they randomly released 3.
Yeah.
If they released 3, then yes, it would be.
But when you say shocking, you mean like plot revelations, not like what on earth was that?
No, it was it's a character. It's a moment with a character that I went, yep, that. How did I not see that coming? And it just blew my mind.
Okay, well, we'll be on the lookout for it.
Yep.
Alrighty. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.